Thank you, Amy. 皆さん、こんにちは。My name is Toshi, and I am a licensed and experienced Japanese teacher in an Australian high school. I also have experience in teaching VCE Japanese in Victoria. Thank you for clicking on this video. This video is for those who want to learn about Japanese verb conjugation patterns in an easy and digestible way. I think a lot of people have given up on learning because other resources have too many verb examples. In this video, I'll keep the examples to a minimum so you can focus on mastering the basics. It will only take around 10 minutes. Please watch until the end. In order to learn verb conjugation, it is important to categorize verbs into groups and study their patterns. There are 3 groups of verb conjugation: Group 1, Group 2, and Group 3.
最初はグループ1です。
Let's start with Group 1. Group 1 has the most confusing changes. Verbs in their plain form that end in u, aru, uru, and oru can be categorized as Group 1. I listed the 4 patterns in this slide. Number 1. Verbs in their plain form that end in u. For example, omou. Number 2. Verbs in their plain form that end in aru. For example, naru. Number 3. Verbs in their plain form that end in uru. For example, tsukuru. Number 4. Verbs in their plain form that end in oru. For example, noru. To explain Group 1, I made a special Hiragana chart that can be used for verb conjugation patterns. You can print out the chart from my blog. Please refer to the link in the description below. All the letters in the U row show the last letter of the verbs in their plain form. Change the letter in the U row to other letters following the Hiragana chart, then add some letters described at the right end of the chart. For the negative form, add nai. For the polite form, add mas. For the potential form, add ru. For the let's form, add u. But there is one thing to remember. In verb conjugation, please consider u as being in the wa column instead of the a column in the Hiragana chart. If you look at the Hiragana chart, you'll notice that the a column is faint and the wa column is written in bold letters. I did it intentionally. That means to conjugate verbs in Group 1, you should not use the a column, but use the wa column. The ra column is also written in bold letters because these are used frequently. Let's use the verb omou as an example. The words on the left describe the conjugation of the verb omou. Change the ending in the plain form u according to the wa column in the chart, and then add the corresponding endings described on the right. Omowanai as a negative form, omoimasu as a polite form, omou as a plain form, omoeru as a potential form, omou as a let's form. Is everything clear? Always keep the Hiragana chart in mind for Group 1 verbs. There is an exception for Group 1 verb conjugation. The negative form of aru is nai. There are other exceptions, but this is the one you should remember first. When considering Group 1, you need to remember the irregular changes of the te form. To make the te form for Group 1 verbs, replace the last letter of the plain form according to the rules in this slide. 1. U, tsu, ru change to tsute. For example, omou changes to omotte. 2. Nu, bu, mu change to nde. For example, asobu changes to asonde. 3. Ku changes to ite. For example, kiku changes to kite. Exception, iku changes to ite. 4. Gu changes to ide. For example, 泳ぐ changes to 泳いで. 5. す changes to して. For example, 話す changes to 話して.
次はグループ2です。
Let's move on to Group 2. Group 2 is rather simple compared to Group 1. Verbs in their plain form that end in いる and 得る can be categorized as Group 2. I listed the two patterns in this slide. Number 1. Verbs in their plain form that end in いる. For example, 見る. Number 2. Verbs in their plain form that end in 得る. For example, 食べる. Please note that some verbs fall under Group 1 instead of Group 2. For example, 走る, 帰る. I know it can be confusing. These verbs seem like Group 2 if you consider the rules that I explained before, but these are exceptions. For those verbs, please follow the rules of Group 1. If you want to conjugate verbs in Group 2, leave the verb stem and then add some letters. The verb stem is the part of the verb that remains after removing the ending ru from the plain form. For example, in the case of 食べる, remove ru and 食べ is the verb stem. Here are the rules of Group 2 verbs. Negative form, verb stem plus 9. Polite form, verb stem plus ます. Potential form, verb stem plus られる. Let's form, verb stem plus よ. Te form, verb stem plus て. Did you notice that for Group 2 verbs, you can make the te form much more easily than for Group 1? Simply add te after the verb stem. That's easy, isn't it? You don't need to remember irregular patterns like you do for Group 1 verbs. To learn the conjugation of Group 2 verbs, let's use the verb 食べる as an example. Here is the conjugation of the verb 食べる. 食べない as a negative form plus ない. 食べます as a polite form plus ます. 食べる as a plain form. 食べられる as a potential form plus られる. 食べよう as a let's form plus よう. 食べて as a te form plus て.
最後はグループ3です。
Let's move on to Group 3. Group 3 includes verbs that conjugate irregularly, but it only has 2 verbs. Simply memorize all the verb conjugations of Group 3. The first one is する. しない as a negative form, します as a polite form, する as a plain form, できる as a potential form, しよう as a let's form, して as a te form. The second one is 来る. 来ない as a negative form, 来ます as a polite form, 来る as a plain form, 来られる as a potential form, 来よう as a let's form, 来て as a te form. As long as you have some knowledge of verb conjugations for the present tense, it is not so difficult to make the past tense. For example, you can make a plain past form using a similar way to make a te form verb. I will explain it to you precisely in another video later. Simply learn the facts in this video, and you can develop the basics of Japanese verb conjugation. That's all for today. I recommend that you watch this video several times to let the information really sink in. If you like the video and found it helpful, please subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. You can also read this explanation in writing on my blog. Please visit hamatoshi.com. The link is in the description below. I hope to see you again soon. 皆さん、さようなら。
最後まで見てくれてありがとう。